Also, the 100th anniversary of another episode in history, the mass killings of 1.5 million Armenians by Ottoman Turks. Controversy still surrounds the commemorations. The European Union, along with other governments, is urging Turkey to use the occasion to acknowledge the events as genocide. It's a word Ankara has rejected. CCTV's Natalie Carney has more from Istanbul.
Berken is 18 years old. Most of his life he identified as being Turkish and Muslim.
I would listen to my grandmother when she spoke at home. It wasn't Turkish or Kurdish. My grandfather was the same, so I started to do some research, and that's how I learned that my great-grandfather was a survivor from 1915.
Learning of his Christian Armenian origins was a shock to him, but one he embraced. Like many Armenian survivors of World War I, Berken's great-grandfather was forced to convert to Islam by the Turkish Republic's predecessor, the Ottoman Empire, who was accused of killing upwards of 1.5 million Armenians 100 years ago. While labeled genocide by many world powers, Ankara says the events were all part of the intercommunal violence at the time.
Turkey's official position on the events of 1915 is that they had to deport the Armenians because they were afraid that the Armenians would revolt and enter into intelligence with the enemy, and i.e. Russia. And during the deportation, some unpleasant events happened. And unfortunately, it's far from being enough to convince anyone in the world that it was not a genocide.
Earlier this month, the European Parliament approved a resolution to recognize the Armenian massacre as genocide and urged Turkey to do the same.
According to the Turkish president, the EU's decision is a betrayal of history. The government has accused all politicians that voted in favor of the resolution of feeding on hatred, revenge, and a culture of conflict, and says that this vote could potentially harm relations between Turkey and the EU.
There will be no outcome of this truly political and hostile campaign against Turkey. What can win take from Iraq? Armenians will end up suffering from this. Making the issue political by completely breaking away from history harms Armenians.
The Turkish government is also being accused of trying to minimize the centennial commemorations by purposefully scheduling an annual event known as Anzac Day, marking the 1915 naval attack upon the Dardanelles Strait, to a day earlier, the same day as the Armenian massacre commemorative events. Ankara says it, quote, shares the pain, end quote, of the Armenians who lost relatives. But a century later, and many of the some 100,000 who live in the country still feel a need for reconciliation.
We're not asking for major compensation for what happened. We just want them to admit it.
But Ankara, who feels unjustly accused, says all atrocities of war should be acknowledged. Natalie Carney, CCTV, in Istanbul, Turkey.